Hi everyone, my name is Maya Fortune from Tribeca New Music, and I'm super excited to be here with Asher Lurie, the winner of the Tribeca New Music Composer Competition 2025. We're so excited to have you, and we're going to be performing Core, Asher's piece, on September 13th with the Pathos Trio. Thank you so much for being here, Asher.
Thank you, Maya. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Of
And looking
course.
forward to the performance.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became a composer, and what are some musical inspirations of yours?
I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. I don't have a musical family, but when I was in second grade, I decided that I wanted to learn guitar. And immediately once I picked up the instrument, I could tell that I loved playing the music of other people, but I really wanted to write my own music for the instrument. And I kept playing guitar until I got to high school, where I picked up percussion as a new instrument, playing in marching bands in high school, eventually in concert bands as well. And through that, I was introduced to classical music and eventually the world of classical composition. But before that, I was writing songs, generally rock and metal songs, progressive rock songs, on my own, just playing guitar, bass, drums and recording those in my bedroom. And yeah, I got to composition through that.
Amazing. So, what were some of your metal rock influences specifically?
Yeah, so my first teacher, well, really only teacher on guitar and bass, grew up in Argentina, but soon started touring with Yngwie Malmsteen, who is a very virtuosic guitar player. So I was introduced very early to a lot of his music. And through that music of his contemporaries, people like Ritchie Blackmore, started getting very into Black Sabbath, though they came a little bit earlier. So that was really the start of it for me. But eventually I got very into more modern metal, listening more to metalcore bands like Avenged Sevenfold, the classic thrash metal bands like Megadeth, Metallica. And lately I've been listening to a lot of progressive metal. Just started listening to Meshuggah, but Animals as Leaders has always been a big influence on me. Bands like Polyphia, bands like Chan. I've always just loved the aggression from the music, and I've wanted to translate that to my own music. So it just really makes me feel something, feel what they're going for, I think. I think those bands also have a strong will to try to reach out and create something new and keep pushing what they've done in the past and what other bands are doing, which I find is something that's done in contemporary composition as well.
Amazing. So, in contemporary composition, you have to do notation, you have to write down things, you're working with more traditional instruments sometimes. How was that process from being a kid in your room writing songs and then moving into more traditional education of composition?
Yeah, it was tough. At first, once I started playing classical percussion, I barely knew how to read music. And about a year after that, I was already notating my own music, while I was still kind of learning how notation actually worked and how to read music. So it definitely made the transition hard, but I found that it was a very good way of writing my ideas down in a way that is easy to understand. I think a lot of people in the rock and metal world overall learn by ear, but I think it's very hard also with progressive metal. The more complex the ideas get, it's a lot harder to learn by ear. And being able to just write down simple rhythms or complex rhythms, but in ways that everyone understands, by having an actual time signature and beaming rhythms to be able to show divisions, subdivisions, I think translated really well. And it took a long time to pick up, a lot of hours on a MuseScore 3, struggling. But yeah, I think it is the best way that I know of now to exemplify my ideas, especially rhythmically.
So, in your bio, you also mention your Jewish heritage being a big influence on your music. How does that tie in to these other ideas that you have from metal and progressive rock?
Yeah, yeah. So it's always been a very big influence, but I think it's also been somewhat of a more subconscious influence compared to the other two. So I grew up going to Jewish day school up until high school. And at that school, we had prayer every day. And I also was bar mitzvahed. And to do that, I had to, of course, learn a great amount of prayer, but also attend synagogue for weeks every Saturday. And the tonality of prayer has always really stuck with me. There's very distinct scales and melodic lines, and it's definitely had a big influence on the tonalities I use in my music, which I think are often related very well to the tonalities of rock and metal, specifically some of the neoclassical metal I started my musical journey on when studying with Yngwie Malmsteen's student. They use a lot of the same or very, very closely related tonalities in their music. And because of that combination, I think it really stuck with the melodies, the chords, and the environments that my music exists in today.
That's amazing. It's super interesting to see these overlapping consistencies within something that you wouldn't kind of put together. So, can you tell us a little bit about the piece that's going to be performed on September 13th, Core?
Yeah, yeah. So my piece core is a percussion quartet. It is a piece that I wrote just over a year ago now. It was a really fun piece to work on. I love writing for percussion quartet. With my percussion background, it's always been a really fun instrumentation to write for and really fun to perform, honestly. I had the privilege of performing this piece on my senior recital back in November. But before that, I had another performance of it at the Soundscape Festival, which it was originally written for. So with this piece, I really wanted to try to distinctly combine some of my primary influences from the past. And at the time, too, that I hadn't really seen combined in my music yet was my influence from my time in marching bands and my love of progressive rock and metal. And I think rhythmically, those influences are very related, where some of my other influences are more tonally related. So I wanted to really explore that in this piece. So I set up a 7 note pattern, which comes up in the piece at one point. And through that, just tried it out on a few instruments and developed into what it is now. And it was just really a joy to put together. And yeah, so fun.
That's really exciting. It seems like you're taking a lot of your historical self and identity and putting it into this piece. Does that seem right?
Yes, I think so. Trying to at least.
Amazing. And have you worked with Pathos Trio before?
I have not, but I know their work very well. I admire that group very much, so I'm very excited to have the opportunity to be able to work with them.
Wonderful. And when you're working with someone and it's your piece, how do you sort of convey what you want out of their interpretation of it? Or do you just let them do what they do and see how they interpret it?
I think in my notation, it's one of my goals to be as specific as I want to be. It's definitely something I still need to work on much more and see more how performers react to what's written in the score. But it's one of my goals that the score contains all the necessary information that the performers need to succeed. And through that, there won't really need to be anything more for me to say. The performers can then take what's in the score and interpret that how they want, and it should work exactly how I want it to, or um, be a variation on what I intended. I don't think that's quite possible for me yet. So it's something I want to work a lot more on, but yeah, at this point, I think it's important for and very helpful for me to be able to talk to my performers and hear them play and really work with them and be available to answer any questions they have. But yeah, just still really work on making the score be the guide to success if possible.
Yeah, I feel like it's always hard, though. There's always things that you don't think about that then the musician has to sort of try and decide what you wanted. So I think it's definitely always a goal for composers.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's such a hard thing. It's so hard to know. So I've tried lately with my works when I'm editing scores to try think about the mindset that performers would be in. But yeah, you're right. It's so difficult, especially with an instrument that you don't write for often or you don't play yourself. It can be very tough to you can't know everything about that instrument and you can't know everything about that person. But I think that brings out some of the best variations of ideas. And right now, it's teaching me a lot, seeing how performers interpret things that I'd written down. Just seeing how things, if I'd written down an idea that's very tough, seeing what makes it hard, or if I wrote down something impossible, seeing what the performer's idea is for a new thing to introduce that can have the same effect or a better effect than what I intended, which didn't work anyways. Um, so yeah, I think just really working with the performers and getting to know them is the best thing right now and can lead me to that goal of having the score convey everything.
Great. That's a good goal to work towards.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's actually possible, but
Yeah, I don't know, but it would be awesome if you cracked the code.
yeah.
Because musicians are always wondering, what did he really think? What were they really thinking about that they wanted this to be? Anyways, one question that we always ask is what advice you would give to the up and coming composer, musician who sort of wants to take an alternative path, who wants to do their own thing. What advice would you give in this day and age?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me has always been finding a mentor. Finding someone who does what you want to do, or at least can guide you in that direction somehow, is extremely important and has always been one of the ways that I've been able to learn more about myself and better craft what it is that I do. I was very lucky when I was learning guitar to have the mentor Mick Servino, who introduced me to music that I ended up loving deep down immediately, even as a kid. And I had a similar experience when I was in high school with my percussion director. And during my undergrad, I had a great mentor, Dr. Donald Scott Stinson, who was always available for me and so able to help me learn. And I think it's very important for musicians or really anyone just to have those mentors to serve as a guide and support you. I think it's hard to find those people, but when you do, I think it's important to be there and be present in every moment you have with them and really take everything they say to heart. You know, even if it doesn't resonate with you, if they give you a suggestion, just try it out. Just see what happens, and you might like it, even though you never thought you would.
That's very good advice. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you, Maya. It's been great to talk to you. I really appreciate this. Yeah.
Wonderful. My name's Maya from Tribeca New Music. I'm here with Asher Lurie, our Tribeca New Music Young Composer Competition winner, and you can see his work on September 13th at the DiMenna Center for Classical Music. And yeah, hope to see you there.